Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I haven't had a huge amount of time to think about this one, but it had been on my mind, and so I kind of want to talk about it. So forgive me if this goes into strange areas. I see green all around, so I am going with it. You know, I live in a sandbox. Everybody lives in a sandbox. We all have our reality bubbles. And in my lefty sandbox, I peruse and I see things, and people send me stuff. And just being a human being on Twitter and Facebook and all this other stuff, social media, things pop up. I am continuously seeing things by supporters of the fallen. People who supported the failed candidate Hillary Clinton and are still looking for people to blame. This kind of reaching from the grave to point a finger at somebody. I saw this one today. Where is it? This guy, Peter Dow. It makes all the sense in the world. Bernie helped Trump. Calling him out is part of the fight to make sure it never happens again. We need to make sure this never happens again. Bernie Sanders. Understand what he's saying. Democracy is what got Trump elected. And the problem here is democracy itself. The fact that Bernie Sanders had the temerity to run against Hillary Clinton and test the fact that she was inevitable made her less inevitable, in which case she failed and lost to reality shows. That is an amazing thing to say, and yet you would hear this over and over and over again. The fact that somebody would run in an election, help Hillary Clinton lose, help Donald Trump get into that office. Democracy itself helped Trump get elected. That's an amazing concept. That's an amazing thing to say out of your mouth, and yet you hear it said constantly over and over and over again. It's old hat. It's a throwaway line. Bernie Sanders has something to do with it. Nina Turner has something to do with it. Those progressives that didn't vote for her has something to do with it. That fucking Jill Stein has something to do with it. That sexist Jill Stein has something to do with it. Everybody else had something to do with it. Russia was trying to take her down. Comey was trying to take her down. Comey, mind you, wasn't even doing an investigation, but was trying to take her down. Everything except the failings of the candidate. It's herself, Hillary Clinton. And take a meta-narrative of this. Nothing about the failings of the entirety of the Democratic Party itself, all throughout the country. 66 out of 99 state legislatures aren't Republican hands. They're batshit crazy and they're rabid, and yet Democrats can't beat them. They spent $21 million on Ossoff, getting him to look as much like a Republican as he can look like a Republican. The people, when given the choice, chose an actual Republican. Progressives have fled in droves. Lefties in general have fled the party in droves. Now, in fleeing the party in droves, you have all of these different side parties: Progressive Independence Party, Socialist Alternative, Green Party, of course. All of these other parties. And those parties have all of my support in the world, because we need to do whatever it needs to do to get a third party going. But I don't like comments like Dow's. And comments like Dow's make me vindictive, if I'm being very honest. Yes, they make me somewhat vindictive. And they make me want to smash that party to bits. And to some degree, I make the point that maybe that's what needs to take place. Each of those people in all of those parties, be it Green, be it Social Alternative, being PIP, whatever those parties are, should cobble together and try to take down and maul each and every Democrat in each and every spot and each and everything that they can find. And what I mean is, yes, run your candidate, and if your candidate doesn't win, make them lose. Make them lose. Do not give your support to anybody who is not somebody who you yourself believe should be in that office. I don't care who it is. I'm talking about a scorched policy and dealing with politics. Yes, that's true. But I'm also talking about a policy of trying to take down one spot after the next in regards to things that Democrats themselves hold, whether it's primaries, whether it's through the Democratic apparatus itself. In my head, it's this image of Harry Potter being on a rock with all of these things crawling out of the ocean, dragging his ass into the depths. The Ghost of Christmas Past. What the party used to be. Smashing the apparatus. At the very least, the cornerstone of the way that party tends to function currently. Jeremy Corbyn is fighting a war with the Blairites, and he is smashing them to bits. And I have this feeling that regardless of what takes place in America with regards to politics, there may be situations where third parties get their rise, but I get the feeling it's going to be through either the destruction of one of the parties or through the co-opting of a party that allows this kind of change in the election process. I guess my thinking is how Democrats are the machines at the gate. I guess that's my feeling. It's just like the conversation they had in The Matrix, where he's like, hey, look, those guys are the machines at the gate, and if anything wants to take place, you got to go through them. The Peter Dows of the world. The guys who saying Bernie Sanders is the problem with the Democratic Party, or Bernie Sanders is the problem, or the thing that got Donald Trump elected, as opposed to us failing miserably getting Trump elected. They've lost everything. They've lost everything. Why do they get to be the adults in the class and maintain the apparatus itself? This seems massively insane to me. I think that party should be assailed on all ends, internal and external. If your guy doesn't get elected, don't vote for any of their candidates. Make them fail continuously in the same way that they failed until they finally get the goddamn hint. You're unwanted. One or two things happen. That party dwindles to nothingness, in which case something else needs to take the domain. Or it changes. I know some would say that party is incapable of change. From a historical perspective, that's not true. Everything changes. Change is the only constant. I guess the question becomes, have we reached a point where my dad used to play Pac-Man, and he used to be so good at the game, he could put Pac-Man in space where the ghost couldn't catch him. Like, they would go around and around and around. He could leave the machine, come back an hour later, and they would still not be able to touch him. I do not know how he used to do this, but he used to be able to do this. Is that where we are? We're in this kind of thicket where it doesn't necessarily matter what takes place. The political apparatus is so broken. These people are so corrupt. And the public has so checked out the process that there is no political will to A, challenge corruption that takes place in politics, and B, to even get anything done with regards to making sure that the election integrity or elections are held with integrity. If that's true, you're in a bad space. If that's true, you're in a bad space. Yeah, the party needs to be smashed to bits. Any change that takes place in your society comes from the left. If the left in the United States is co-opted by the Democratic Party saying we're the left while not doing things that are actually from the left, then the things that your society needs to do to change, to accommodate the vagaries of capitalism, meaning to expand beyond those vagaries, to handle the issues that actually affect your society, the left should be the conscience of your nation. That is not the Democratic Party. The party was so out of touch, he got beat by a blue-collar billionaire, a rich man who's saying he's out there for the working man, as opposed to the philosophical party that's supposed to represent his interests. If the Democrats can co-opt the left, if they can corner the left, if they can claim the left, if they can say that this is what leftism is, this mutilated form of leftism that allows murdering abroad and market-driven solutions and privatization to every aspect of our society at home. If that's the left, oh man, we're in a bad spot. We're in a bad spot. They hate Bernie Sanders so much because Bernie Sanders gets across this idea of what they actually were. It challenges the narrative that they themselves are the definitive left. How can you be the definitive left when this guy's standing right there, brilliant and progressive in the things that he's saying and doing? The ghost of Christmas past. I'm saying that needs to be affected on every aspect of the apparatus itself. And if the apparatus doesn't bend at the point in which it's being pressed, allow it to fail. Scorched earth purely by your terms. Tell me what you think. Am I being too optimistic in regards to what I think can take place with that? There's a secondary thing to this. There's an aspect that the left and right converge, and that's on this idea of elections. Look, nothing takes place without fair elections. Nothing. It doesn't matter how good your platform, how good your policy. If elections themselves can't be maintained with a certain amount of integrity, you're talking about some kind of war, because people aren't going to respect the governing apparatus itself. It no longer is a fair and partial apparatus. You have something that's controlled, it's manipulated. It becomes more vulgar in the way that it gets manipulated. So yes, the public is not necessarily going to take that line down. The second thing, actual policy, actual things that need to take place no longer take place. You no longer have a fair governing apparatus. That needs to be challenged. That needs to be maintained. That's something that's challenged on the left and on the right. If nothing else, that is something to converge on. So, I'll leave it at that. I try not to do these for too long, because long videos don't get watched as much. But, alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, rate, subscribe, and of course, you can always support Patreon. Thanks guys.